8 out of 10 startups fail. But what if most of those failures were avoidable? Imagine having a toolkit that not only shows you where things go wrong, but also teaches you how to proof your business before disaster strikes. Today's guest has made and survived his fair share of entrepreneurial blunders, from navigating the roller coasters of launching Whirlwinds LLC to mentoring small business owners on how to not to self sabotage. He's distilled his wisdom into a powerful new book, Oho. He is an inventor, entrepreneur, and self proclaimed Oho navigator. So please welcome William Holston to the Founders Podcast. William, welcome to the show.
Hey Ash, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for
Great,
having me.
great stuff. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, it's from my hero Walt Disney, and it's a simple one. If you can dream it, you can do it. It's inspired me through many of my creative endeavors that worked out and some that didn't.
Great stuff. So talk to us more about your new book. What inspired you to write it down, and what are these distilled frameworks and blueprints you have drafted in the book?
The book you named it. It's called Uh-Oh,
Oh.
UHOH,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about um, dumb mistakes that people make in business for many, many reasons. I wrote it because I've made so many myself when I
Mm-hmm.
was an entrepreneur and in life in general, but they really affected my entrepreneurial journey in the carnival games invention space. I may go into that in a moment. But given my mistakes, then when I had sold off my entrepreneurial venture, I continued in my day job running creative problem solving workshops for my global multinational company. And I saw that there were many tools that could be used to come up with ideas, to solve problems, to have empathy for the customer's experience and learn. So I took many of the tools that I've used in my corporate life and wanted to translate them for entrepreneurs, startups, and small businesses so that they might have a do-it-yourself toolkit to goof-proof their businesses. I do have to point out that these types of mistakes, what I call dumb mistakes or uh-oh mistakes,
Mm.
they're different from making a major strategic error or an executional screw up when you're trying to do a strategy correctly. These are
Mm-hmm.
more those things that you have forgotten. It's a misstep. It's unintended. That's what differentiates it. So you might have the best strategy, but on day two of executing it, you could forget the keys to the vehicle or forget to lock up your store at the end of a business day, and things get stolen. So these are things you forget, and the causes include being stressed, being tired, your emotions. There are many factors. So I wanted to put in one book a toolkit for entrepreneurs, small businesses, etc., to be able to turn and find a tool that can help them not not mess up, not make dumb mistakes.
Mm. Interesting,
So
interesting.
and the book came out in February, so it's really brand new.
Indeed, indeed. And let's talk about how the story began. Where did the idea came from to start your first venture, and then what happened during when you're working on it? What kind of failures you have faced, and right now what's happening? Are you working on a new startup, or your primary goal is to help other founders with the frameworks you have created?
My primary goal for this year is to help others through the
Yeah.
book, through workshops I can do, through speaking about these 10 tools that are in the book. But let's
Hmm.
go back. Um, now, this is a while ago. I've always been a creative person. I'm one of six children who grew up on Long Island in New York,
Hmm.
and my older sister had a daughter who was hosting one summer a charity carnival for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And
Mm-hmm.
she encouraged all of her aunts and uncles and friends to bring something to the carnival. This is in August, um, that could make them money. So I jumped on it because I love doing those kind of things. And I called a rental company, a for hire company in England, and they were not in England, they were in Pennsylvania, but I called a rental company and reserved a dunk tank. A dunk tank, most people will know, is a carnival game where you got somebody sitting on a ledge and they're sitting over a very large tub of water. So a player throws the ball, hits a target, and if they hit the target, it makes the people fall into this gigantic tub of water. We thought it'd be fantastic to raise money for the charity.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks before the carnival, the rental company called me and said, there's a drought in the Northeast United States. We can't rent that to you because it requires filling it with 500 gallons of water. Would you
Mm-hmm.
like something else? And I said, no, I'll figure this out. And I said, no, thank you to them. And we canceled that reservation. My wife and I sat at our kitchen table and began to see how might we do this so that it's a similar action. People
Mm-hmm.
still get soaked, but it's not using 500 gallons. And
Mm.
in an afternoon, we came up with a game we later called Pitch Burst. We called it the drought proof dunk tank. And we cobbled together out of plywood and 2x4s and sporting equipment a game that hung a water balloon over a seated person's head,
Mm-hmm.
and it was rigged with a plywood panel so that there was a target on the panel, and at the opposite end of that, a pole was a pin that would pop the balloon when you hit the target. So the play was similar. You would throw a ball at a target, and when you hit the target, it would push forward into the balloon, bursting it, so water fell down and soaked the person under it. A very visual game, and we
Yeah.
knew it was popular immediately. That day, it was 95 degrees. What is that? 24 Celsius. It's a very hot, humid day, and we had kids playing it all day, and we made hundreds of dollars for the charity. We were so happy with this. We went home and said the next day, when the telephone began to ring, people said, "Where could I get that game? I want one too." I said, we could go into business.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we first did some research to find out A, has it been patented before? B, is there demand for it? So we did a survey of rental stores in our region around the
Mm-hmm.
New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, and unanimously found that they have dunk tanks. They're very popular summer items, but they would welcome an alternative that was not something that needed a trailer to tow it, that
Mm-hmm.
could be cost them less money, and that their customers could rent for lower fees, but would still deliver this visual and summertime fun.
Yeah.
We learned it could be patented, so we filed a utility patent for the design. I went to a bank and got a business loan to be able to produce these games and pay for magazine advertisements. This is uh, before there were online social media things to use as there are now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were in magazine advertising, and we went to some trade shows. So the cash we borrowed, plus some of our savings, helped us produce 100 of these games, much as we had made ourselves out of wood. We hired a vendor to do this and to advertise them and go to trade shows. In our first 6 months, we sold about 60 of these units to rental stores in our region.
Mm-hmm. How
We
much each
were
of them you sold for?
They were approximately $750, $800.
Mm-hmm.
So it was substantial to sell 60 in the first 6 months. And we were thrilled, and we were continuing our marketing efforts, went to more trade shows. By the way, I had a full-time job. These were nighttime and weekend work and vacation work to do the trade shows. We learned, and we were doing fine until the weather began to warm. We sold a lot of them during the winter and spring in
Mm.
advance of the summer. And then when the warm weather came and these games were rented by their new owners to customers, we began to get complaint calls. My word was, oh, this is not good. Well, there was one, we thought it was nothing. There was a second, and then by the time we got 10, we realized when these games were rented out at least 10 times, they would be breaking. It was made of wood, so the wood would break, the screws would come out, the decoration logos we had on it would peel off, and we got complaint after complaint. So that was a large mistake on our part. We had done our own testing with our own game, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't torture test it enough for to be fit for purpose. So we had the realization that our wooden game Pitch Burst was doomed, and we faced a pivot point to exit or to continue some other way. We pivoted in that we re-surveyed our customers who loved the Pitch Burst idea, but hated it, especially when their customers complained to them.
Mm.
Um, we asked them, would you buy one of these again if it were bulletproof? And they said yes. So we took more money out of the bank, ours and a loan, and hired an engineer to re-engineer the game out of steel with plastic, durable plastic panels. We re-engineered and relaunched Pitch Burst 2 years later, and this is in 2002. It's still on sale today. It's a very successful game.
What is
So
it called again? Sorry.
Pitch Burst, Pitchburst.
Pitch Burst. Okay, great stuff. Cool. So that was your one of the first ventures, I'm guessing.
That was my first entrepreneurial venture and
That
my first dumb mistake.
was,
I,
was
I made an acronym for uh-oh, UHOH, in that all these types of errors, mistakes, are for the one who commits them. They're unintentional, humbling, observable, and they create a hardship. UHOH, uh-oh. But it really is a dumb mistake that you always wish you
you
could have
haven't.
avoided.
Do you,
And we recognize the uh-oh moment as the moment to realization that this is not going to work. Something's gone terribly wrong.
so what was the dumb mistake? The dumb mistake was when you started getting the complaints, or is there something
But
twisty coming along?
the lesson learned was the complaints were not the problem. The design and the
Mm,
materials we used were the problem. We learned this in retrospect. We
yeah,
wish we knew it earlier.
got it, got it. Great stuff. So what happened afterwards? How did you stumble upon your next ventures, and what was the f- framework you were following?
We were still, I stayed, for my career, I stayed with the day job. So these
Mm,
were always side gigs. The realization when we were selling Pitch Burst at trade shows was by observing other vendors at trade shows. They were doing two things. They had a line of products because it's quite expensive to get a 10 by 10 or 10 by 20 foot booth. And by having only one product, you were not maximizing that investment. We
mm,
also observed that good vendors, good competitors in this space came out with something for the rental and party market that was new and fresh each year. So the next venture for us was to do this within the same marketplace. And we invented another game that was an air balloon popping game. This one, called Boom Blaster, was one that we launched 3 years after Pitchburgh's first launch. Um, its gameplay is kind of like you're pumping a bicycle pump, but we made it look like a dynamite detonator. So you're pumping up and down.
mhm.
And as you pumped up and down in a separate stand a few feet from that, a balloon was there, and each pump stroke made the balloon get bigger. And you would have two, three, four, or more of these side by side, and kids and adults would race to pump the balloon so as to be the first to pop the balloon. Also, again, a very visual game that's great for people to watch and to play, and for all ages. That
Cool.
launched in, like I said, 3 or 4 years after Pitch Burst, and was an instant hit. We sold hundreds of these units to the same customers, same types of customers around the world, not just in across our region this time, because our reputation had grown.
Mm-hmm.
And we we ran into other uh-oh moments with this one. Again, it was avoidable, but we did not foresee it. And that is, we used uh, off the rack bicycle pumps inside of this as the mechanism to drive the air into the balloon.
Mm-hmm.
We did not consider until it was too late that bicycle pumps themselves are designed to be used for a few moments while you fill a tire, or maybe 5 minutes if you're filling a car tire. But when you put these in competition with two, four, six, 10 kids side by side, each playing a game as aggressively as they can for as long as they can, and then when they pop the balloon, you repeat and you repeat. So these were hours on end. Heat builds up inside of pumps, and
Mm-hmm.
heat inside of metal pumps or plastic pumps degrades. It's called a little O-ring that's inside that actually enables the air to be pushed. And these degraded enough in high heat, long play situations that they flaked, and the little flakes got in and clogged the pumps. So our second big uh-oh moment in my side gig entrepreneurial career was, again, because of material choice, that the pumps were clogging, and the rental customers complained to the rental companies, and of course they called us and immediately let us know. The solution there was less dramatic than re-engineering the entire gate. It just led us to find, first I had to study aerodynamics and heat dynamics to understand what the problem was. And then by talking to pump manufacturers and material experts, learned that if we change the O-ring from a cheap rubber one to a synthetic, it was called Viton, another material, you engage some appropriate grease on the O-ring between uses, you can reduce the incidence of this clogging by 95%. And it took time. We we made good. We sent the parts. By the way, with the original Pitch Burst, with Boom Blaster, and the 3 games that followed, if my company, my Whirlwinds LLC company, sold you something, I stand behind it. So we got really good at hearing complaints, delivering spare parts, listening very carefully to what the problem is and how to avoid it. And when we had to, we did refunds. So we borrowed lots of money to start Pitch Burst. We borrowed more money to re-engineer it. When this pump thing happened with Boom Blaster, we went through it kind of again. So we were not rich, but we were building a reputation for creative, innovative games. But people were beginning to wait. I'll wait for the second version to come out.
Got it. Got it. And the interesting thing is, you kept doing it, but there is an aspect we haven't discussed yet, which is finding your customers aspect. That's one of the biggest challenge in founders life, right? If you're working on your product, you get more excited, you spend days and night on your product because it's about product. But when it comes to finding a customer, it's more about what's happening on the ground, where your customers are, and what are you doing to actually find them. So I usually ask this to my guests, that how did you find your first customer, and then we move towards the second question, that how did you got your first 10 customers, and then what's the strategies you're using to get your customers currently. But I think in your case, I can clearly see that you had no issues finding your first customer, because obviously they were looking. Is it?
It's a really interesting line of questioning because we had the product first. We
Hmm.
used the product first and demonstrated it first, and therein began to think not what does this customer want, but who would be a good customer for this. That's how we got to find and then explore the rental market. One of our challenges was we did it that way and we knew nothing about the rental market. So we did a survey, and then before we made anything physical, we made little concept sheets and sketches and went and visited a few, not only so we could show them our idea, but we could examine what does their inventory look like? How does their process work when they rent things out? One of the discoveries we made in those in-store interviews was that the dunk tank we were ultimately going to compete with requires it to be put on the back of a truck or a car with a trailer hitch and delivered to them. So
Mm-hmm.
an advantage we saw for our pitch burst game was we could make it so it could be folded and put into the back of a minivan by the customer themselves, therein saving all the delivery besides saving the water, which was very scarce at that time. So our first engineering, we went to car dealerships, measured the width, and then designed the wooden game to exactly fit the average minivan back of the car. When the wooden game then failed, we went further to redesign it for more ease of assembly, takedown, and play. But by the way, the steel one looked much, much better than the wooden one ever did.
Ah, okay. That's good to know. And this was your second experiment with the game.
Mhm.
Was there any more um, in afterwards this air balloon experiment?
Did we continue? Yes, but I'm going to finish the thought on customers.
Mm-hmm.
We, our first trade show was the American Rental Association. It's a very focused organization on rental stores themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The second, once we began selling, many of the buyers who are rental store owners also encouraged us to look into another trade show, a bigger one. It's called IAAPA, the International Associations of Amusement Parks and Attractions.
Mm.
Rental customers are a small subset of that customer base, of that universe, uh, and also theme parks and amusement parks and major party companies are regularly going to those trade shows looking for new fun ideas. And it was there that we met people from, I can't name them, major theme parks in Orlando where the mouse is an icon, who became our biggest customer. We weren't looking for them, they found us. And
Mm-hmm.
our pitch first game, the better one made out of steel, became a feature in their recreation things around their resorts.
Wow.
So I love looking for customers in my day job. I'm a marketer and I'm an innovator, but I love it even more when big customers find us and look and
Mm.
pay for our product. It
That's
added to the pressure to have quality products. Now, yes, we did go with the enthusiasm about our creativity, our customer service, unfortunately, not about our engineering skills. Um,
mm.
the next game, we did some research to look how else might we make games that gave a very visual wow. And my family and I had a young son and daughter by then. Of course, my wife was with me too. We would go to amusement parks and look for inspiration. And in a big water park in New Jersey, we saw one of these gigantic buckets in a pool area that slowly fills up with thousands of gallons of water. That's recycled, so it wasn't wasting it. And the kids would stand under it when the whole thing spilled and made a gigantic splash. We thought to ourselves, with our background with Pitch Burst especially, how do we make a very visual game, something that could be rented by our customers, rental stores,
Mm.
and be exciting for the kids and adults playing it. So we developed a game that put two players opposite each other,
Mm-hmm.
each with a water pump that pumped water from their crank handle up into a bucket over the other guy's head. So it was a race to pump the water fastest that made the buckets spill. So we wanted to get customer reaction before anything. So we had an artist render this for us, and we took the rendering on a poster to the IAAPA trade show.
Mm-hmm.
And people were very excited about it. We took pre-orders on a game we didn't even design yet. So we were very, very excited about it. I found a third vendor, to help us generate a prototype and proof of principle. And about a week or two after I showed them the sketch, they had me back to their factory and they said, watch this. And they demonstrated with a raw pump from a barrel pump. These are used for oil and things. They could pump things up and down and put water, and they had it balanced on the top of a tower so it did spill. So proof of principle shown. I got really excited about this.
That
So
is
immediately I ordered a prototype, and then we took the prototype. It was in February. We rented a hotel room so we could use the hotel's pool with their permission and test this with 10 kids to play it all day to try and torture test this prototype. It worked fine all day. The structure was made out of metal tubes. They were aluminum tubes, and it was a makeshift kind of stand that it was on that the shop designed for me. But we came back from that pool test thinking this is going to work. So we made a few tweaks based on what we'd seen that one day, and I ordered 100 of. I took a loan out again, and I ordered 100 of them because there was such high demand from the sketch at the IAAPA show. We then let people know we were taking orders by emails, and immediately we took the 100 orders. We were fully subscribed.
wow.
And in late April of that year, they were done, and I shipped them out to locations around the world, mostly US, but some were Europe, some were Asia. And I wish I could tell you it was a great success and I became a millionaire, and that's what I did. But we had a third set of moments here, dumb mistakes, still based on materials and design. In principle, the playing action was spectacular. In practice, the version we put out was not good. It was not durable enough. We should have learned that before, but we had never done this type of game. And we learned from Boom Blaster that pumps need special care when you're doing aggressive gaming, but we never thought that water pumps designed for heavy use in industry that were oil pumps would have any problem pumping water quickly. But in fact, the pumps that were our OEM versions on this game was called Downpour Derby. They cracked, they broke under heavy competition. We had used those kids in the hotel pool, and nobody was over 12 years old, but we watched them do it over and over again and thought thumbs up. So some of my lessons in the book, some of the tools in the book are test and learn. Do it sequentially so you can build confidence that you got something before you launch something and scale up. But in this case, I'm sorry, ask you first.
No, I was just saying that you sold 100 units of it. How much each unit you sold it for?
These were about $1,400.
So that's a substantial amount of money
This
people
was
were
substantial.
spending.
And it was substantial capital investment to get ready for it too.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then you were just about to say about the problems you have faced with it.
Yeah, so it mainly was the pumps breaking in heavy competitive use. So the immediate focus was to get a pump that doesn't break, and we did that, and we provided better pumps to all of the buyers of the existing game. But even those pumps were not durable enough over the entire summer that year. So by the end of that summer, we again faced the question we had on Pitch Burst. We had to abandon ship on it, give refunds, give parts, and make goods all the way around. But we did ask every one of those 100 customers, would you buy this if we could find a way to make it bulletproof? 80% of them said yes. And we knew it would cost much more. We said, even if it was $2,000, and they said yes. So we went, found another vendor who re-engineered it for us into a much more durable form. And looking back, it succeeded. We still had to evolve from plastic rotary pumps, which replaced the pumping ones, the manual handle ones, became rotary, which is a smoother operation. But those even later evolved to stainless steel pumps, which are the bulletproof ones. It raised the price another couple $100, but customers, playing customers and owning customers all wanted it to be bulletproof. Ultimately, we got there. It was a hard way. It was our third set of uh-oh realizations. And it inspired this book because
Okay.
I'd like to help people avoid as many of these as possible.
What were the three lessons in these three different experiences of your life which you would like to communicate through this medium?
Lesson number one would be to partner with people who are better engineers than if you realize your own weakness, and I did, uh, partner or hire an engineer to avoid to get the material and design questions settled early. Second, at least with these three experiences, would be to test and learn and not be in such a rush to launch. Test and learn one piece at a time or one mechanism at a time, or in other areas, one program at a time before
Mm.
you scale up, so that you can be confident with each succeeding one that you've got something better.
Yeah.
A third lesson is to be patient.
Mm.
Interestingly, we all three of these games are still available now. We sold off the patents and trademarks in 2013 when I exited this business. I had heart surgery, so I'll talk about that in a moment. But it was my moment of coming to a life decision to continue with day job and this job with all the debt we were carrying. The stress was really high. So we had to decide to sell and exit that. So my day job with its health benefits would help me. I'll go into that story in a moment. Um, where was I? We're talking about the three lessons.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um,
you have covered three different lessons. I've noted it down. So
ah,
that's
the
that's
one on partnering with the right people and being patient. When we sold the three games to a company in Minnesota, they're called Water Wars. They're a company that does things for the same industry and for theme parks and water parks and camps. They took Downpour Derby, our good version, the re-engineered one, and re-engineered it again so it could be played in parks and campgrounds and other things. They would install it in pools. And I visited their shop shortly after this and observed that they had done a re-engineering in wood, and they had a few of the models there that spring. And I said, "Oh, are you going to sell it right away to the parks?" And they said, "No, we're going to find some of our best customers and install it for free for an entire summer. And we're going to tell them to kick the snot out of it. And then we're going to come back in the fall, listen to all the lessons and what went right, what went wrong, and then we'll build the production model for the next season." They were patient. They were much better engineers than me, and I love this expression: "Kick the snot out of it." That's test and learn times 10 to me, and it's a lesson I wish I knew before I made a wooden pitch press.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, definitely. Great. So this is a part where in our show, what we do is we go through what we have learned today, and then understand, what we have covered. So basically, you have shared with our audience three different experiences which you have personally experienced in your life, and then the learnings from it. So first one was when you tried to um, replicate a dunk tank, but in a new and innovative manner. It was a very first entrepreneurial experience for you. It brought you a good fortune in terms of money and per unit sale for each unit. But the aha moment was there around the design of the product, and you wanted somebody who understands that. The second one was around the air balloon thing, where you learn about it's not just about the design, but also how the dynamics of the product inside out with air and everything works. And then the last one, which was around this competition with which where you put two people against each other, and they try to pour water on top of each other's head in the buckets. That's where you realize it's also about testing and learning first, with your product, and then going into the market, because not necessarily what you think is going to work always work. So that those are very cool personal experience as well, you have shared today. And I think we have covered partnering with skilled people is quite necessary when you have a skill gap in your team. Testing and learning first is as important as working on your product. And I think one of the biggest example of this is Dyson, which is the vacuum cleaner company. They're one of
Mhm.
the biggest innovators from UK, and they have done really good job in testing and learning first from the customer. And last but not least is being patient about your venture, and letting it groom slowly but steadily. Is there anything else we have missed today?
No, by the way, I love your artwork.
Cheers.
It's reasonably honest to what we actually did, but it's more colorful today.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in the book, the 10 tools are based on four directions that the reader or the entrepreneur might consider. And
Hmm.
they're about understanding yourself and your own tendencies towards mistake making. And that's realizing, are you more prone to making dumb mistakes if you're tired, if you're stressed, if you're going through emotional journeys, if you base it on false assumptions? That's the one that got me 3 times.
Mm.
So it's about yourself. The second set of tools is about understanding your customers and being empathetic with their experience. How do they use it? And uh, some of these lessons are driven by I could have done a better job to see how they use it and learn that competition would kill some of the things I initially came up with. The third is about your company and your business plan and how you operate. The tools outline some ways to look into where you might run into problem if you're not paying close attention. And then the fourth set, it's not my favorite, but it's the one I talk about a lot, is looking at the external work because there are so many lessons you can learn from other people's mistakes. It was Warren Buffett who said it's great to learn from mistakes, but it's better to learn from others' mistakes. And
Mm.
I, in the book, I not only detail all of these my own game mistakes, my game uh-ohs. I did some research and found maybe 15 other ones from around the world that were, I call them epic fail uh-ohs because they were very famous. Like at the Oscar ceremony in 2017, the presenters were given the wrong envelope and announced the wrong Best Picture winner in front of billions of people on TV.
Oh my god.
Or, or there's a case in the UK of the Hoover Corporation. There made vacuum cleaners and washing machines. They did a very famous promotion where if you bought a Hoover item in the UK stores, you would get free tickets to fly to about 6 cities around Europe, a pair of tickets. And
Mm.
it was selling off excess travel inventory, and it really worked out well for both the travel people and for the Hoovers. And they said that was so great. Let's now offer tickets to New York and Orlando. It
Mm.
became the most famous epic fail promotion ever because somebody didn't do the math because the tickets cost them much more than they were generating from the vacuum cleaner sales. Things like that are detailed in the book.
Yeah.
Um, and the most famous one I remember is a skydiver who was asked to film another pair of tandem skydivers jumping out after him. So this guy, Ivan McGuire, were both up with his other two people on the plane at 10,000 feet. He jumped out, turned the camera on. This is before GoPros, it was a film camera, and gave them a thumbs up. They jumped out. They pulled their ripcords and their parachutes open. A beautiful shot. Then Ivan reached for his ripcord and found he had forgotten his parachute, and
Oh.
he died. It was very very tragic. But what I talk about with companies here is that not many people are skydivers. I am not. But you can take a lesson from that in that you think about your company and your processes. What is the one thing in your set of circumstances that if you ever forgot it, even once because you're distracted or something else, it could give lots of damage to you, your company, or your customers.
Mm,
I call looking at external mistakes and learning from them for your own purposes an art called uh-ohology.
mm.
And there's a whole chapter about that in the book with many examples.
Perfect, perfect. That's really really cool. Well, William, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking, you know, decades of building these multiple businesses and ups and downs along the way, and your oh moments. If people want to check out the book or people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it?
It's on my website. It's myname.com, William Holston, one word.com. And I can offer one of the tools in the book that's about finding your own tendencies to make dumb mistakes. It's a self
Mm,
analysis that take you 10 minutes. It's a downloadable PDF. When you go to williamholston.com, on the landing page on the left is the book, and you can buy it directly from there. On the
mm.
right is this free PDF. It's called Why the F Did I Do That? It's a 10-minute self assessment. It's free for the taking from
Awesome.
williamholston.com.
That's perfect. That's perfect. William, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing by empowering other founders by, teaching them. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you very much, Ash.
That's good. We did it in